The October sun hung low over Riverside Estates, painting the cul-de-sac in shades of amber and gold. It was the kind of afternoon that made you believe in suburban perfection: manicured lawns, perfectly aligned mailboxes, and the soft clink of ice in glasses on back patios. Marcus Webb stood at his front window, watching his delivery notification ping with satisfaction. His new camera lens had shipped early. He'd been waiting 3 weeks for it. The Tesla pulled up exactly 4 minutes after the FedEx truck left. Marcus recognized it immediately: the pearl white Model S with the custom vanity plate that read HOA. She was the HOA president, the woman who'd sent him 17 violation notices in the 8 months since he'd moved here. Too many cars in the driveway once, his sister had visited. Grass 1 centimeter too tall. The wrong shade of brown mulch. His mailbox painted an unapproved navy blue. Her name was Gwendolyn Hartwell, and everyone called her Gwen except Marcus, who'd mentally nicknamed her the Tyrant. Marcus watched as she climbed out of the Tesla in her signature uniform: white linen pants, a fitted cream blouse, oversized Chanel sunglasses that cost more than his monthly car payment. Her platinum blonde hair was pulled back so tight it looked like it hurt. She was attractive in that cold, calculated way, the kind of beautiful that made you think of inheritance, money, and generational trauma. She walked directly to his porch, not the side gate, not checking for any cars, direct. The package sat exactly where the FedEx driver had left it: square, tan, sealed with the Amazon Smile logo. His camera lens, worth $1,847. Gwen looked around, a quick scan of the street, and then she bent down. Marcus watched her pick it up, weigh it in her hands, and she just took it, walked back to her Tesla with his package like she'd just collected her own mail. Marcus's hands went cold. He stood there for a full minute, certain he'd misread the situation. Maybe she was, but no. There was no reason for her to approach his porch, no excuse, no pretense. She'd simply stolen it. He pulled up his doorbell camera footage immediately. Crystal clear. Gwendolyn Hartwell, time-stamped 3:47 p.m., lifting his package with both hands and carrying it to her car like it was a birthday gift meant for her. The rage that filled his chest was pure and clean and immediate. Marcus spent that evening in a strange state of suspended anger. He called FedEx. They said a package delivered was a package considered delivered. The responsibility fell to him now. He filed a report anyway. He checked the ring footage again, zooming in on her face, making sure there was no ambiguity. There wasn't. This wasn't the first time either, he realized. 3 weeks ago, a package had gone missing. He'd assumed it was lost in transit. 2 months before that, another one. He'd figured it was just the chaos of the service industry. But looking back now, each of those times, he'd seen her car parked down the block. He'd thought she was visiting someone nearby. Marcus opened his laptop and scrolled through the HOA Facebook group. Gwen posted constantly photos of the community, updates on new regulations, her smiling face at community events. Keeping Riverside Estates pristine, her bio read. One rule at a time. In the comments sections, people thanked her. "You're so dedicated, Gwen, and thank God for your enforcement. We'd be chaos without you." But there were also careful, coded complaints. A post about a homeowner's ongoing frustration with inconsistent enforcement. Another about an appeal that had been mysteriously denied. Marcus clicked through to Gwen's profile. She ran a consulting business called Hartwell Excellence Solutions, where she charged people thousands of dollars to optimize their lives and enforce accountability systems. In her profile picture, she stood in a pristine office, one hand on a glass desk, looking like she'd never broken a rule in her life. He sent her a message through the HOA page. "Gwen, I believe you may have taken a package from my porch today by mistake. My Ring camera captured it. Can we discuss?" Marcus Webb. He waited. An hour passed, then 2. At 8 p.m., his phone buzzed, not a message from Gwen. An email from the HOA Violations Committee. Subject: Violation Notice 18-447 Sycamore Lane. Dear Mr. Webb, it has come to our attention that you have installed extensive and inappropriate security infrastructure in violation of HOA Bylaw 423, which restricts external cameras to reasonable and understated sizes. Your Ring doorbell camera is deemed excessive and must be removed within 72 hours, or you will face a $500 fine, escalating to $1,000 per violation. This is a final notice. Sincerely, Gwendolyn Hartwell, HOA President. Marcus read it 3 times. His hands were shaking. She'd responded by weaponizing the HOA against him. Not just ignored his message, she'd seen his camera, recognized the threat it posed, and immediately moved to have it removed before he could gather more evidence. The calculation was perfect, evil in its efficiency. He picked up his phone and dialed the non-emergency police line. The officer who came by was sympathetic but ultimately useless. Package theft, he explained, was a civil matter in most cases, especially between neighbors. The Ring camera, legal, but the HOA could fine him if they wanted. It was a private community. Maybe try to work it out with her, the officer suggested. Marcus laughed until his ribs hurt. Over the next week, he documented everything. He bought 2 more Ring cameras, one for the back gate, one for the side. He kept his current one despite the violation notice. Let her fine him. He screenshotted the original message she'd sent about the camera violation, noting the timestamp. 3:48 p.m., 1 minute after the FedEx delivery. He reached out to a lawyer, $400 for a consultation. The lawyer, a tired woman named Patricia with reading glasses on a beaded chain, told him the same thing the police had. It was a civil matter, and small claims court would likely be futile. Even if he won, he'd spend more recovering the cost of the lens than it was worth. What about the harassment? Marcus asked. The violations. Selective enforcement, Patricia said. You'd need evidence that she's treating you differently than other residents. He went back to the HOA Facebook page and started researching other violation notices. Out of the 11 violation notices posted in the past 6 months, 8 had been issued to Marcus. The others, minor infractions that had been resolved with requests for compliance. No fines, no escalation. He took screenshots of everything. But evidence felt hollow. What he wanted was justice, and the system wasn't interested in providing it. That Sunday, Marcus did something he'd never done before. He created a fake Facebook account and joined the neighborhood buy-sell-trade group. He posted a carefully worded message. Does anyone else in Riverside Estates have issues with package theft? I've had 3 missing packages in the last 2 months. Just wanting to know if it's a widespread problem. The responses came quickly. Us too, so annoying. I thought my Amazon account was hacked. So glad it's not just me. I always pick a package up from the office now. Can't trust the porches here. And then, buried in the comments, a more specific one. Honestly, I'm pretty sure Gwen Hartwell's been taking packages. I've never proven it, but every time something goes missing, I see her car here. Don't say anything, though. She's vicious if you question her. 12 people had commented by the end of the day. At least 6 of them had experienced package theft. And the mention of Gwen's name appeared in 4 separate comments, always whispered, always careful. He had found his evidence. More importantly, he had found his resolve. Marcus spent the next 2 weeks planning. He couldn't go to the police. The lawyer had made that clear. There wasn't enough for a case. He couldn't sue her. The costs would destroy him. The HOA was controlled by her. The neighborhood whisper network was strong, but people were too afraid of her to speak up publicly. So he would make her afraid instead. The plan was simple and elegant. He would give her exactly what she wanted. He would give her a package so irresistible that she couldn't help herself. And inside that package would be a mirror, not a metaphorical one, but an actual confrontational reflection of what she'd done. The genius of it was that it wouldn't be illegal. It wouldn't be violent. It would just be educational. Marcus spent $89 on an Amazon return box, made sure it was the right size and weight to match a typical delivery, and packed it carefully. He didn't put anything harmful inside. He knew the line between justice and crime, and he stayed carefully on the justice side. What he put inside was something far more devastating than anything physical could be. He placed the package on his porch on a Thursday afternoon right at 3 p.m. when his doorbell camera showed Gwen usually made her rounds. He'd studied her patterns. Every other Thursday, she drove through the neighborhood, checking on things. In reality, she was hunting. He was inside, watching through his phone, when her Tesla pulled up. She didn't even hesitate anymore. That was what struck him most. She'd crossed a line so completely that stealth was no longer necessary. She was bold now. She believed in her own right to take what she wanted. She got out of the car in full daylight, walked directly to his porch, and picked up the package. Then, because she was a creature of habit, because she was arrogant in her assumption of invincibility, She opened it right there in his driveway. What Gwen found inside the box was a USB drive and a printed packet of documents. On the USB drive was every piece of video evidence of her stealing, every timestamp, every angle, every moment of her reaching for packages that didn't belong to her. The printed packet contained a detailed accounting of all confirmed package thefts, 6 packages, valued at $4,312 total. The Ring camera footage timestamps, screenshots of the Facebook group where neighbors had mentioned her, documentation of her selective HOA enforcement, her business website and consulting fees, a copy of her business license, and at the top in simple bold letters, "You're fired." Below that, a note in his own handwriting. "Dear Gwen, you've built a business and a reputation on accountability, on enforcement, on the idea that everyone must follow the rules, on the idea that you are somehow elevated above consequences. You're not. I have enough evidence to file a police report, a lawsuit, and a complaint with your state's business licensing board. I could destroy your consulting business and the reputation you've spent years building, but I'm not going to. Instead, I'm going to do something worse. I'm going to give you what you've given everyone else who lives in Riverside Estates: options. Option 1, you resign from the HOA immediately, and I keep this evidence private. Option 2, you keep your position, and I make sure every HOA member, every client you have, and every person you've ever done business with sees exactly who you are. The choice is yours, but choose quickly. Your business license inspection is scheduled for November 15th. I wonder if the inspector might find this documentation interesting. Regards, Marcus Webb." For a moment, just a moment, she didn't move. She stood there in his driveway, the package in one hand, the evidence in the other, and Marcus watched her face undergo a transformation that was almost alchemical. Confusion morphed into understanding. Understanding became anger. Anger twisted into pure existential panic. She spun around and rushed back to her car, documents scattering behind her like disturbed birds. Marcus felt something in his chest settle, not quite satisfaction, not quite peace, but close. She didn't respond that day or the next, but by Monday morning there was an emergency HOA meeting called for that evening. Marcus got the email at work. Urgent leadership transition. He showed up to the community center at 6:55 p.m., taking a seat in the back of a room that was already buzzing with whispered speculation. The previous vice president, a meek man named David, was sitting in the front row looking stunned. Gwen came in at 7:00 p.m. exactly. She looked diminished somehow, the same clothes, the same posture, but something essential had been drained away. Her hands shook as she approached the podium. "I am resigning as HOA president effective immediately," she announced. Her voice was flat, mechanical. "David will assume the role. I'm also stepping down from the violations committee. I wish Riverside Estates all the best." She didn't take questions. She didn't explain. She simply left. The room erupted. People were confused, speculating, but Marcus sat quietly, knowing the truth. He'd given her a choice, and she'd chosen survival. The real surprise came 2 weeks later. Marcus was at work when his lawyer called. "Your former HOA president is filing a restraining order," Patricia said without preamble. "Claims you're harassing her, sent threatening communications, the usual." Marcus's blood went cold. "I sent her evidence of her crimes," which she's framing as a threat. She's also claiming the package you delivered was some kind of. She's claiming it constituted harassment and emotional distress. "Can she prove that?" Marcus asked. "Not really, but restraining orders are easy to file. The hearing is next month. We should be fine, but..." But there was always a but. "But what?" "But she's also filed a complaint with the State Business Licensing Board. Against you. She's claiming you threatened her business, made false accusations, and committed identity theft by researching her personal information without consent." Marcus felt the floor tilt beneath him. I just looked at her public Facebook page." "I know it won't stick, but it means you're both litigating now. This gets expensive." By the end of the call, Marcus understood. He'd won the battle, but Gwen had transformed the war. She'd gone from predator to victim in a single narrative shift, and the system, The legal system, the community system, the social system was designed to protect people like her. He'd made a mistake. He'd underestimated her capacity for counterattack. The restraining order hearing was scheduled for November 14th at the county courthouse downtown. Marcus sat in his lawyer's office the day before, staring at the stack of documents she'd prepared. "Here's the situation," Patricia said, shuffling papers. She filed for a temporary restraining order already, which the judge granted ex parte. That means just her side of the story. You're technically already under the order, which is why I had you sign these documents stating you understand the restrictions. I can't go near her house, her car, her place of business. Correct. If you do, she can file a motion to show cause, and the temporary restraining order becomes permanent. Then you'd be a convicted criminal with actual legal penalties. Marcus felt sick. What's our defense? Truth, you provided evidence of a crime. Package theft is a crime, even if law enforcement hasn't pursued it. You had a legitimate right to compile that evidence and inform her of potential consequences. The emotional distress claim is weak. You didn't threaten her. You offered her a choice. That doesn't sound reassuring. Patricia removed her glasses and pinched the bridge of her nose. It's not. The issue is that restraining orders in this state are weighted toward protection, not accuracy. Judges are risk-averse. If there's any ambiguity about whether you might contact her or escalate the situation, they'll grant the order just to be safe. The hearing lasted 45 minutes. Gwen sat across the courtroom in a charcoal dress, her hair down for once, styled to frame her face in a way that made her look vulnerable. When she took the stand, her voice wavered. She spoke about the threatening package, the hate materials, the way Marcus's actions had left her afraid to leave her house. She didn't mention stealing packages. Instead, she framed the entire situation as coming out of nowhere, as though Marcus had simply decided to attack her for no reason. "He's a cyberstalker," she said, her voice trembling. "He researched my private information. He documented my daily patterns. He orchestrated this elaborate revenge scenario. I don't feel safe in my own neighborhood." The judge, an older man who looked like he'd seen enough human drama to last several lifetimes, listened impassively. When Patricia cross-examined, she pointed out that Gwen's private information was literally public: Facebook profile, business license, HOA records. "But he used it to stalk me," Gwen maintained. "He knows my schedule. He knows when I leave my house." "Based on public HOA records that you, as president, distributed to all neighbors," Patricia countered. But the judge's expression didn't change. When it came time for the verdict, he ruled that Marcus would be subject to a 1-year permanent restraining order. He couldn't contact Gwen, approach her property, or take actions that could be construed as monitoring or tracking her. The penalty for violation was up to 6 months in jail and a $1,000 fine. Marcus had won the battle but lost the war. As he was leaving the courthouse, Gwen's new lawyer, because of course she had a lawyer, a sharp-looking woman in Prada, approached him in the hallway. "My client is also planning to sue you civilly for the emotional distress and damage to her business reputation," the lawyer said, handing him a business card. "I'd recommend you prepare for a settlement discussion." The lawsuit wasn't filed immediately. Instead, it hung over Marcus like a sword, unsheathed but visible. He went back to work. He went about his life, but something had changed. The neighborhood had fragmented. Some people, the ones who'd commented about package theft, had warmed to him. A woman named Claire who lived 2 doors down brought him casserole and whispered, "Thank you for standing up to her." An older couple across the street seemed to nod more frequently when he mowed his lawn. But others had shifted away. Gwen had been the most active, most visible member of the community, the one who organized events and sent newsletters. Without her, there was a vacuum of leadership, but also a vacuum of accusation. People could breathe. They also didn't know what to think. The real damage came from the Business Licensing Board investigation. 2 inspectors showed up at Marcus's office on a Thursday morning. They were investigating a complaint filed by Gwendolyn Hartwell, alleging that Marcus had engaged in harassment and defamation regarding her professional business. His company's HR department got involved. There were meetings. His boss, a reasonable man named Richard, called him into his office and closed the door. "I'm not going to fire you," Richard said immediately, "but I need to understand what the hell is going on." Marcus explained everything. The package theft, the HOA violations, the restraining order hearing. Richard listened, then exhaled slowly. So you compiled evidence and confronted her with it. I didn't confront her. I sent it anonymously via package. But you left a note with your name. Yes. Jesus, Marcus, Richard rubbed his temples. Did your lawyer tell you not to do that? I didn't consult my lawyer before doing it. I wasn't thinking clearly. No shit, Richard leaned back in his chair. Okay, here's the situation. The investigation will go nowhere. You didn't make false claims, and business licensing boards don't typically care about interpersonal disputes. But your company is being drawn into this, and our clients are asking questions. We have a reputation to maintain. I understand. Do you? Because right now I'm looking at our top developer involved in some kind of neighborhood vendetta. Our insurance company is nervous. Our clients are nervous. I'll resign, Marcus said. The words came out before he'd fully processed them. I don't want to damage the company. Richard was quiet for a moment. Let's not do that yet. Let me talk to our insurance broker and see what our exposure actually looks like. But Marcus, you need to fix this, whatever this is. By December, the situation had escalated in ways Marcus couldn't have anticipated. Gwen didn't file her civil lawsuit. Instead, she did something far more elegant. She filed a report with the police department claiming that Marcus had threatened her, that she had evidence of harassment, and that she feared for her safety. The police showed up at his door with a different attitude this time. Not sympathetic, but suspicious. An officer named Detective Kim explained that they'd received a detailed complaint and they wanted to get both sides of the story. She showed him the evidence Gwen had compiled. The restraining order documents, printouts of the Facebook posts Marcus had made about package theft, carefully framed as though he'd posted them to target her specifically, and the threatening package itself, preserved in an evidence bag. She claims you're harassing her, Detective Kim said, that you've been monitoring her movements and documented her daily patterns. I have a Ring doorbell, Marcus said. Like probably 40% of houses in this neighborhood, I documented one instance of her taking my package. And then you did what exactly with that information? I put it in a package along with some documents and delivered it to her. Threatening documents. Not threatening, informative. But as he said it, he realized how it sounded, how it could be interpreted. A package delivered directly to her house, containing evidence about her, would absolutely be read as a threat by anyone disposed to read it that way. Detective Kim explained that they couldn't arrest him without more evidence of a specific threat, but they were documenting the complaint, and if the behavior continued, there could be charges. Harassment, stalking, harassment via electronic communications. I haven't contacted her, Marcus said. The restraining order. I'm aware of the restraining order. I'm also aware that someone has been posting on neighborhood social media groups about package theft, essentially accusing her of it without using her name. That could be interpreted as ongoing harassment. That was me warning people in case they'd experienced the same thing I did. A reasonable jury might see it as continuing a vendetta. After she left, Marcus sat in his living room in the dark. The situation had metastasized. It was no longer about the stolen packages. It was about power, narrative, and the question of who people chose to believe. Gwen had transformed herself into the victim of a conspiracy, and Marcus had given her all the tools she needed to make that narrative stick. The actual breaking point came a week before Christmas. Marcus received an email from Patricia with the subject line, "Urgent Settlement Discussion." The email contained a proposed settlement agreement from Gwen's lawyer. She would drop the civil lawsuit and the police complaint. Marcus would sign a document acknowledging that he understood his actions had caused her emotional distress and agreeing never to discuss the matter with anyone. In exchange, Marcus would pay her $15,000. It's not a good deal, Patricia wrote, but it ends the litigation and potentially the police investigation. Without a settlement, this could drag on for years. You'd spend at least $20,000 in legal fees. Marcus read it 3 times. $15,000 for what? For trying to hold someone accountable for stealing from him. He called Patricia. What happens if I don't settle? She pursues the lawsuit. The police investigation continues. Your company gets more uncomfortable. You'll eventually settle anyway, probably for more money, and definitely after spending more time and emotional energy. So basically, she wins either way. Legally, yes. She's converted a criminal act into a civil dispute where the outcome benefits her financially. It's actually quite brilliant if you think about it from a purely legal perspective. That was the moment something crystallized in Marcus's mind. The system wasn't designed to prevent this kind of behavior. It was designed to reward it, as long as you had the resources and intelligence to work within its boundaries. He agreed to settle. On December 23rd, Marcus signed a document promising to pay Gwen $15,000 within 30 days, and agreeing never to discuss the matter with anyone, under penalty of additional legal action. Gwen, in exchange, dropped the civil suit and withdrew the police complaint. Everything was resolved, legally, officially settled. Marcus had lost $15,000, endured 3 months of legal warfare, and learned that sometimes the person who commits the crime ends up richer than the person who tried to expose it. He sent the check on January 2nd. It cleared on January 5th. But here's what Gwen didn't account for. Marcus had learned her system. He understood now how she operated, how she used the rules, how she weaponized the systems of authority and accountability, how she turned her violations into other people's problems. And if there was one thing Marcus had discovered about people like Gwen Hartwell, it was that they didn't stop. They couldn't stop. The behavior was compulsive, almost biological. Taking things that didn't belong to her wasn't just about the theft, it was about the proving to herself that she could, that she was above the rules. So Marcus waited. And in mid-January, right on schedule, a new package arrived. This one was from William Sonoma, a new espresso machine he'd ordered for his kitchen. He signed for it, left it on the porch, and made sure his cameras were recording. At 3:47 p.m., right on time, Gwen's Tesla pulled up to his driveway. She was rustier at it than before. There was hesitation in her step now, a glance toward the street, a moment of doubt, but need won over caution. She approached, took the package, and returned to her car. Marcus smiled. The settlement agreement had been very specific. It prohibited him from discussing the matter with anyone. It didn't prohibit him from documenting her ongoing behavior. It didn't prohibit him from compiling new evidence. It didn't prohibit him from sharing that evidence with the appropriate authorities. The old evidence was off-limits. The new evidence was fair game. He pulled out his phone and called the police non-emergency line. "Hi, yes, I'd like to report a package theft that just occurred at my residence," he said. "I have it on video. Yes, I can provide the footage. The suspect is a resident of the Riverside Estates neighborhood." This time, when the officer asked who had taken the package, Marcus had a clear answer. "Her name is Gwendolyn Hartwell. She lives 3 doors down, and she's been doing this for months." The police took the new evidence seriously this time, partly because it was clear and documented, partly because there was now an established pattern, but mostly because Marcus had learned to present it without emotion or judgment. Just facts, just video, just documentation. Detective Kim came by again, but this time her demeanor was different. There was no suspicion in her eyes. Instead, there was something closer to professional interest. "Multiple instances," she said, reviewing the footage from his new cameras. "January 15th, January 20th, January 25th. That's a clear pattern, and you're saying this started at least 3 months before that." "More than 6 months ago. I'm the one who first brought it to her attention in October, which is why she resigned from the HOA. But apparently, that didn't address the underlying compulsion." Kim looked at him steadily. "You couldn't have discussed this with anyone, could you? There was a settlement agreement." "I'm discussing it with law enforcement as a report of an ongoing crime," Marcus said carefully. "The settlement agreement prevented me from pursuing civil claims or discussing the matter publicly. It didn't prevent me from reporting crimes." He'd read that agreement dozens of times. That's a narrow interpretation. It's also an accurate one. Over the next week, Kim interviewed neighbors. Claire, the woman who'd brought casserole, was happy to report her missing packages. The older couple mentioned 3 instances. A woman named Patricia, different from his lawyer, said a $200 smart home device had vanished. In total, they compiled evidence of at least 12 confirmed thefts with Gwen as the common variable. The grand total value came to approximately $8,500. On February 3rd, Gwendolyn Hartwell was arrested. The charges were theft over $500, which elevated it from a misdemeanor to a felony in the state of California. She was booked, processed, and released on her own recognizance pending trial. The mugshot that was taken became, inevitably, part of the public record. It was also, inevitably, screenshotted and posted in the neighborhood Facebook group within 6 hours. The comments were vicious. "I knew IT. She ruined my life and she was a criminal. This whole time she was lecturing us about following the rules. Her consulting business is based on integrity. What a joke. Is anyone else shocked? I mean, I'm not surprised, but I'm shocked." Someone dug up her consulting business website and found that it had been taken offline. Her LinkedIn profile had been deleted. A quick Google search revealed that her company, Hartwell Excellence Solutions, was no longer listed as an active business. Her career, built on her reputation for uncompromising accountability, had evaporated in approximately 6 hours. Gwen's lawyer, the sharp woman in Prada, worked quickly to damage control. She released a statement saying that her client was the victim of a misunderstanding and a vendetta by a disgruntled neighbor. She claimed that the items in question were unclaimed community packages that Gwen had been collecting to return to the post office. It was a creative defense, and it might have worked if the evidence hadn't been so clear. But Marcus's videos showed Gwen specifically targeting packages from his porch. Not community packages, not unclaimed items, his packages. The prosecutor, a woman named Susan Torres, contacted Marcus through his lawyer to schedule an interview for the prosecution's case. Torres was efficient and direct. She explained that she would be filing for trial on 6 counts of theft, with an additional count of receiving stolen property. The grand total value of the stolen items would support felony charges. "What's the likelihood of conviction?" Marcus asked. "Strong," Torres said. "You have video evidence, a clear pattern, and witness corroboration. The defendant's excuse about collecting community packages doesn't hold up against your specific Ring doorbell footage showing her deliberately selecting items from your porch." "What are the potential sentences?" "For first-time felony theft of this magnitude, she's looking at anywhere from probation to 2 years in county jail, depending on the judge and how she presents herself. She might argue it's a mental health issue, kleptomania. She might argue she was confused, but the evidence is going to be hard to spin." Marcus felt a strange mixture of vindication and something closer to pity. Gwen's life was unraveling in real time, and while part of him believed she deserved it, another part of him, a smaller, quieter part, recognized the proportionality issue. He'd started this to recover a stolen camera lens. It had ended in felony charges and a criminal record. He mentioned this to Patricia over the phone. "That's not your responsibility," she said. "She made her choices. Each time she approached your porch, she made that choice. You're not responsible for the fact that her choices have consequences." But he felt responsible anyway, or maybe not responsible, guilty. There was a difference, and Marcus was beginning to understand it. The case moved slowly, as the law does. Discovery took weeks. Depositions took longer. Gwen hired a new lawyer, a public defender named Michael Chen, who had the exhausted air of someone fighting every day against a system that was already stacked. By April, the preliminary hearing confirmed that there was sufficient evidence for trial. By May, a trial date was set for July. By June, Gwen's life had become a sort of purgatory where everything was suspended in anticipation of the verdict. And in late June, something unexpected happened. Gwen showed up at Marcus's door. He almost didn't open it. The restraining order had expired 6 months after it was issued, and it was now August, so technically she was allowed to be there. But it was shocking to see her on his porch, looking diminished and almost unrecognizable. She'd lost weight. Her hair had gone back to its natural color, a mousy brown that made her look 10 years older. She wore jeans and a sweatshirt, completely stripped of the styling that had defined her. She looked like a ghost haunting the scene of a previous crime. "Can I come in?" she asked. Her voice was thin. "I don't think that's a good idea," Marcus said, but he didn't close the door. "I'm not here to threaten you. I'm here to... I need to say something." They stood in his living room, awkward as hell. Marcus didn't offer her coffee or a seat. She stood there, wringing her hands, and when she finally spoke, her words came out in a rush. "I'm going to plead guilty." she said. My lawyer thinks I should fight it, but I'm not going to. I'm going to plead guilty, and I'm going to ask for probation and anger management, and I'm going to explain to the judge that I have a compulsive behavior issue that I've been managing poorly. Marcus said nothing. I want to tell you, and I'm doing this against my lawyer's advice, that the package theft was a real issue. I'm not saying it to excuse it, but I want you to know that I understand that. I was taking things that weren't mine, and I know that's wrong, and I know it caused you harm. Why are you telling me this? Marcus asked. Because nobody ever apologizes to you in this system, Gwen said. The legal system, I mean, you come out the other end of it and you've either won or lost, and there's no moment where someone actually says, I was wrong and I hurt you. And I was wrong and I did hurt you. She was crying now, silently, tears just streaming down her face. I've lost everything, she continued. My business, my reputation, my position in this community, and I know that sounds like I'm asking for sympathy, and I'm not. I deserve to lose those things. But I wanted you to know that I understand that now. I understand what it means to violate someone's boundaries and then have them hunt for accountability when the system won't give it to them. Marcus felt something in his chest shift. It wasn't forgiveness. He wasn't sure if he believed in forgiveness in the abstract. But it was a recognition of something human in her, some genuine moment of self-awareness that came too late to change anything but might at least mean something going forward. Okay, he said quietly. I'm going to ask the judge for probation with anger management counseling, Gwen continued. And I'm going to get a job, and I'm going to try to be a different kind of person. And I know that doesn't undo anything, but I wanted you to know that I understand what happened and why. The trial is in 3 weeks, Marcus said. I know I'm going to plead guilty before that. My lawyer isn't happy about it, but it's what I need to do. She left then without waiting for a response, without trying to rebuild something that was broken beyond repair. She just left. The trial was canceled when Gwen entered her guilty plea. She stood before the judge, a different judge than the restraining order hearing, a woman named Elizabeth Richardson who had the air of someone who'd seen enough human behavior to be disappointed but not surprised, and she spoke clearly about her actions. I made a choice, Gwen said. Every single time I approached Mr. Webb's porch, I made a choice to take something that didn't belong to me. I made a choice to violate his property rights and his sense of safety in his own home, and I want to take responsibility for those choices. The judge listened impassively. The prosecutor, Torres, didn't argue for harsh sentencing. Gwen had pled guilty to 6 counts of theft. The grand total amount was $7,500, slightly less than originally believed, based on final documentation. In her sentencing recommendation, Torres noted that Gwen had no prior criminal record, that she'd expressed genuine remorse, and that the defendant appeared to have underlying psychological issues related to compulsive behavior that would benefit from mental health intervention. Michael Chen, the public defender, argued for probation with mandatory counseling and restitution. Judge Richardson sentenced her to 2 years of probation, 120 hours of community service, mandatory weekly counseling for compulsive behavior disorders, and $7,500 in restitution to Marcus Webb. Additionally, she was banned from all residential areas of Riverside Estates for the duration of her probation. It was essentially a gentle sentence. Gwen would avoid jail time. She would face consequences, but not devastating ones. As she was leaving the courthouse, she saw Marcus in the hallway. For a moment, they just looked at each other. Then she nodded once and he nodded back. It was the last interaction they ever had. What happened next was almost anticlimactic in its ordinariness. Gwen moved out of Riverside Estates in August. She got a job at a retail store in downtown, not a prestigious position, not something that built toward future success, but a job that was honest and simple. She started attending the mandated counseling sessions. She began the process of restitution, paying Marcus $200 a month. The neighborhood settled into its new normal without her. The HOA, now run by David, became more relaxed about enforcement. People's lawns could be slightly too tall. Mailboxes could be the wrong color. The world didn't end. Marcus's company, seeing that the legal situation had resolved, stopped being nervous about his presence. Richard called him back into his office and said, "You're good, right?" "Yeah, I'm good," Marcus said and meant it. But something had changed in him too. The vindication he'd anticipated, the moment where justice would feel like justice, had never arrived. Instead, there had been a long, exhausting process where the system had been used as a weapon by someone with resources, and where his own attempt at accountability had become a source of damage that extended far beyond its intended target. He'd wanted to stop a package thief and hold her responsible. What he'd done, instead, was methodically destroy a person's career and livelihood. And yes, she deserved some consequence for the theft. But had she deserved the complete erasure of everything she'd built? He couldn't quite convince himself that she had. In November, 8 months after that first missing package, Marcus received a letter in the mail. It was from Gwen, not an email, an actual handwritten letter on normal stationery, no return address. He almost threw it away without opening it, but something made him tear into the envelope. Marcus, it began in neat handwriting. I'm not supposed to contact you. My probation officer would probably have an issue with this, but I needed to say something that I didn't have the courage to say in court. I've been thinking about why I took the packages. My therapist and I have spent a lot of time on this. The simple answer is that I'm compulsive and I have control issues. I have a need to prove to myself that I can do things, break rules, take what I want, and get away with it. It's about power, and it's something I inherited from my mother, who was always taking things too. Cut from the same cloth, as they say. But more than that, I think I was taking them from you specifically. You moved into the neighborhood and you didn't immediately fall in line with how I did things. Your mailbox was the wrong color. You had too many cars. You pushed back against my authority in small ways that made me feel like my system wasn't working. And so I took from you to prove to myself that I could, that I was still in control. What I didn't understand, what I'm only now understanding, is that taking your packages wasn't about you being out of line. It was about me feeling out of control in my own life and trying to reclaim that by controlling you. By violating your boundaries and watching you struggle with it. I made you my problem so I could stop being my own. I know that doesn't fix anything. I know the apology comes too late. I know that I've destroyed my own life and it's hard to feel sympathy for that. But I wanted you to know that I've spent the last 6 months understanding what I did and why I did it, and it's not a flattering picture of who I am. Maybe I can be better. That's what the therapy is for. That's what the probation is for. That's what the rest of my life is for, I guess. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm just asking that you know that I understand now. Gwen. Marcus read the letter 3 times. Then he put it in a drawer and didn't think about it for several days. When he finally did think about it, he realized something. Gwen's destruction, the fall from HOA president to convicted felon, wasn't actually justice. It was just destruction. Real justice would have been the moment she was arrested and the evidence was clear and the system worked the way it was supposed to. Real justice would have been her facing consequences proportional to her crime. But what he'd actually achieved was something messier and more complicated. He'd exposed her, yes, but he'd also participated in her complete destruction. And in participating in that, he'd become something he wasn't entirely comfortable with. He'd become like her, someone willing to use the systems of authority to hurt another person just because he could.